There is one magnificent presence, whom I choose to call God, filled with love, filled with peace, filled with beauty, and filled with that inner calm. And I know that this presence is centered in my being, in every experience I have. And just as I know that this is true for me, I also know that it's true for every single one of you. And as we venture through this day and through this week, I know that this loving, peaceful, beautiful, and calm presence resides within each and every one of us and pours through us in every experience we have. And we are so blessed to be here with this loving community, to have this sacred communion amongst all of us. And I bless all of the volunteers that made this wonderful service possible. I bless the technical director, the audio, and everybody that contributed to have the sound available, the screen behind us. And I bless all of our wonderful musicians, sharing their gifts, their joyous music, and filling this sanctuary with such beauty. I bless Reverend Martha, our spiritual leader, knowing that her message touches each and every one of us exactly and precisely as it needs to be, and that we carry this loving, powerful message throughout this week and throughout this day. And I ask all of you to join me in saying, and so it is.
Our reading this morning comes from a quote from Amma. She says, "The sun shines down, and its image reflects in 1,000 different pots filled with water. The reflections are many, but they are each reflecting the same sun. Similarly, when we come to know who we truly are, we will see ourselves in all people." And now I'll turn the service.
Good morning. Aren't you loving Joel Goldsmith? Are you? Oh my God. I feel like someone's kicking me in the spiritual pants with this guy. And it's so good because what he's reminding us is that there is no God but God. I love that opening chant. La ilaha illallah. Say it with me. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. That's the first pillar of the Quran, the first pillar. And so there is no God but God. And if that's true, there is no God but God, then the rest of the stuff we're making up. You know? And we're going to talk about that, all of these limitations, the anger, the jealousy, all of that stuff. We make that up because we're having a human experience here. So along with us having a human experience, we really have to forgive ourselves because sometimes that happens. So, and Zenobia and I didn't even confer on bringing in the Hafiz, but there's a short poem from Hafiz. He calls it Mismatched Newlyweds. Like a pair of mismatched newlyweds, one of whom still feels very insecure, I keep turning to God saying, kiss me, kiss me. And that's essentially what each of us are doing constantly, is saying, come on, God, give me some reassurance here. I'm here, I'm in, I got my, put the ante in, I'm here. Kiss me. Come on, God. Tell me what's going on. A few years ago, my husband and I were having our kitchen redone. And so the contractor came and said that he'd hired this guy to seal the countertops. And he says, but I got to warn you, he fancies himself a spiritual healer. And he's like, those people from Santa Fe, with those. So I said, okay, sure, all right, got it. Duly warned, I'm duly warned. So I walk in the kitchen, the guy's in the kitchen, working on the countertops and stuff. And he says, when I called your house, you said something about a center for spiritual living. And I said, yeah, it says that on the voicemail. And he says, and here it comes, right? I'm a spiritual healer. I said, that's nice. When do you think you'll be ready, with the countertops? And so he's like, apparently I didn't understand. So he's like really like he goes, I'm really kind of a spiritual healer. And I said, great. Do you think it'll be ready for use by tomorrow? And so anyway, and it went on like that. But what got me about the spiritual heal, and so I actually was one of the things I said, so you get a healing with every ceiling, and and inside I'm just like, and the guy was very serious about his healing, and the ceiling. So anyway, but what he didn't understand or what he didn't get, and this is the message that Goldsmith is saying to us, is that every single one of us is a spiritual healer. What we're looking for is the consciousness that allows us to harmonize with that healing. That's what we're doing, is that we're harmonizing. It's not like anybody else. I really felt sorry for the guy. I was like, you really ought to come to our center. You would fit right in, but he thought that he was really special. And he's special, but not for the reasons he thought, Because what we're doing here is we're looking for that consciousness that allows us to start healing. There is no God but God. There's only one power, only one strength. It's not that, and this is turning to our reading today, what Goldsmith says is it's not like in the past, 1,000 years ago, people are dying like flies, he says, and then suddenly they're not anymore. The fact is, those antidotes, the kinds of healings that we know today, just weren't known back then. In his world, he's saying to us, everything that has ever been known about God, or everything God knows is already known. It's perfect. Our job is really to evolve, to tap into it. It wasn't that there was no electricity back in the olden days. It's just they hadn't tapped into it. Now we know a little more about it. We tap into it. Our great-great-great-grandchildren are going to be able to run the world in a much better, more efficient way because they have more knowledge than we do. So it's the spiritual consciousness that we're going for. It's not that God wants us to be sick. God doesn't want malady in our lives. Goldsmith says, God doesn't want us to be sick. God never wanted anyone to die. But we know more now. And here's and he says this is really important. He says, disease is man created. And only through man's developed spiritual consciousness will it be eradicated. Okay, so one more time. Disease is man created, and only through man's developed spiritual consciousness will it be eradicated. If you can grasp the significance and truth of that statement, you will realize then the development of the spiritual consciousness is my responsibility, and you will be correct. Through prayer and contemplation, let the nature of God be revealed. Our job really, and this is what we know as religious scientists, our job is to know the nature of the divine, because if I am made of the nature, if there is no God but not God, la ilaha illa Allah, if there is no God but God, then that means that I am it. I am the individualization of that spiritual reality, having this relationship with myself in this world. Takes up all my time, I'm telling you that right now. Takes up all my time. And so so if there is only one power, and my job is to know the nature of God in order to evolve, then it's incumbent that I know my own nature. Neil Donald Walsh tells a story of a woman that he was in love with, and he gets really jealous because she's talking to somebody, talking to some other guy, and he's like, she's talking to another guy. And so he tells her, what are you doing talking to that guy? And he says her response is, you know, Donald, that's a very unattractive trait, this jealousy, and walks away. She doesn't buy into it. She doesn't start saying, well, gee, I was only asking directions, or gosh, that's a very unattractive trait. And so Walsh says in the story that it kind of shocked him. It slapped him, because here he is being jealous, pretending as though love is a limited commodity. So if we use God, and this is Goldsmith's point, we can't use God. Because the moment we begin to use God, the moment we begin to say, well, I've got a God that's more powerful than your God. My God's so great, it'll overcome anything. The moment you do that, he says, you've lost. Then you're pretending like there's some power somewhere, when in fact there is only, what? One power, that's right. The people in front are paying attention. Come on. We want the people in back to pay attention. Okay. So there is one power. And so if we begin to use God as though I have dominion over something, I see something in my life and I begin to pray because this one thing is not what I want it to be, then I'm beginning to use God like a commodity. And then suddenly there's a reason to be jealous, right? My guy is talking to that woman, and if he goes away, my partner's talking to that woman. If he goes away, she goes away, then I have no love left in my life. It's a big fat lie, isn't it? We're pretending as though God is an infinite God, that we aren't immortal, that we're not here just for the duration of this physical life. But here's the truth. We're already immortal. We're already eternal. We're here to have this physical experience. We're here to have it. All of it. Every single part of it. When I was in the ministerial school, there was this really intense week in the springtime. And so people would just pray and meditate all week long. Be ready, Tammy. It's a big week in spring. All right. So we would just meditate all the time. So sure enough, we get to class one day. The professor is like, let's meditate. So we're in it. You know, we're there. We're in it. And this day, I go into the meditation and I literally flip. Like it felt like a flip. And I was standing with my grandmother on the other side of the veil. Grandma passed away in 93. So I'm standing there, and it is the most beautiful day you can imagine. I'm at her house. I'm actually at her cousin's house, which was 2 fields over from her house. So I'm standing in the front yard of the cousin's house, and it's incredible. I mean, just the colors, pristine. The air was amazing. My cousin's husband is gardening there. Big, huge corn stalks. I mean, it was gorgeous, just amazing. And so I'm standing in the yard looking around, and I see my grandmother and her cousin come out of the house with a little tray of tea, a little pitcher of tea, 2 glasses. So they drink tea on the other side, I'll tell you that now. And so they come out with this little tray of tea, and they put it on the table, And my grandmother looks up and she's startled. And she says to me, "What are you doing here?" And it was that voice that she would use when I was 5 and she caught me doing something wrong, you know? It was that voice. And I looked at her because I really didn't know what I was doing there. And I just said, "I came to see you." And she said, "No, go home now. This is the land of the dead and you still belong to the land of the living. Now, go home now." And so I flipped and I was back in the room where I'd been meditating. Now, what that did for me was that up until that point, I used to think that if all the good things were happening, that life was good, I was in the flow, then God must be at work. Then God was at work for me. But if anything troublesome started to happen, I wasn't quite in the flow, things weren't quite happening the way I hoped, then God wasn't working for me. And what I realized after that meditation was, it's all what I'm here for. I'm here for all of it. The good, the bad, the indifferent. That is my human experience. That's what I'm here to have. And because I am a divine being weaving this body so that I can have this experience, then all of it is what I'm here to have. And I make it up. I'm jealous because my person is talking to that person. Or I'm jealous because so-and-so got more than I did. Or I get mad because so-and-so's gossiping about me again. But you know what? It's all made up because I'm here to have this human experience. And you know what? It's okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to not forgive or to forgive or to be jealous or not jealous. It's okay, because the only thing to remember is that I'm having this experience. And we all know people that get into the misery of their lives. Well, if you had a life like mine, you'd drink too. You know, we all know people like that who really get into the misery. Well, you think you've got it bad? You should see what I've got it bad about, you know? And it's this whole top it kind of thing. That's all right. Until I don't want it to be okay anymore. And that's what Goldsmith is saying. There is one power. That power is God. And we can't even use it. The tides have already been preset for 1,000 years. It's not like we even have dominion over anything. So we don't go into prayer for our God to have dominion over an evil. And he says, the moment you do that, you've lost. The moment you do that, you've lost. Because I have now given this condition, this person, this place, this thing, this condition, I've now given it power over me. And then I'm praying so that it doesn't have power over me. Is it any wonder I go to bed tired at night? Come on. So there is one power, and that's all there is. And our job then is to harmonize with the one power. That's the job here. It's not to have dominion over it, because it's erroneous thinking. It's totally okay to go ahead and be jealous, angry, sad, upset. But what that does is it limits our world. Be afraid. We're just doing it for the experience of it. That's all. Because we're really not that. And in our heart of hearts, we know we're really not that. We know we're immortal. We know we're eternal. We know that we don't even have to die to be immortal. We know all of that. So if I get mad and limit my life, well, I'm really just wanting the experience of that. And that's okay, as long as we remember that that's what we're trying to do here. So Goldsmith says, a drastic change must take place in individual consciousness to enable people of this world to cope with life and all its problems, and to look at evil, sin, disease, war, poverty, and be able to say, what is that to me? Wow. Thou couldst have no power over me unless it came from the creative principle of the universe, which is God. I am resting in one power. Our job here is to evolve our consciousness to that place where we can't even see evil, because God can't even see evil, and that's where we're going. And he says, this is spiritual wisdom. If we could reach that place where our consciousness is so evolved, this is spiritual wisdom. There is nothing with which to contend, nothing to heal or reform or supply or overcome. Know the truth. There is only one God, whether in the Occident or the Orient, one God, whether among the Greeks or the Jews, the bound or the free. There is only one, and the I in the midst of me is that God infinite, omnipresent, omnipotent, omniscient, the only power. There is no power besides the I that I am. And then he finally realized, he says, to do spiritual healing, it is necessary to be able to look any form of sin or disease in the face with complete confidence. Neither do I fear thee. So just talk to it even. Neither do I fear thee, nor will I battle thee. Why should I fear what mortal man can do to me? Why should I fear what mortal things or persons or conditions can do to me? If God himself is the only law, presence, power, cause, substance, and reality, I will stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. I like that old time stuff. Our devotion is to a God so infinite that besides him nothing exists to be wiped out or destroyed, so infinite that that power cannot limit, cannot be hindered. In this principle is embodied not only the secret of healing, but the secret of harmony in your life. You are now carried through life rhythmically as on a beam of light. That's the beauty. There's nothing to be overcome, nothing to be destroyed, nothing. It's only to come into harmony with the nature of God, with the nature of life. So if you join me in a spiritual practice, for people who are new, we do a little meditation. So if you feel comfortable, please close your eyes. Take a deep breath and release. Take another deep breath and release. Now imagine that you're standing in a field of light, a beautiful grassy field on a beautiful day. You're walking in this field. Imagine that you are pure light, pure light. Allow yourself to harmonize with the day. Just for this moment, allow anything that no longer serves you to fall away. Allow any fear, judgment, guilt, shame, just allow it all to fall away. Allow yourself to be in complete harmony with this energy, with this light. Now allow this harmony that you are to grow so big that it harmonizes everything and everyone in your life. And allow yourself to remember what it's like just to be light. Feel the lightness of your being. And so remaining in harmony, allow yourself to take a deep breath. And when you're ready, come back to the room. There is one power, one. It's woven every one of us that are here who wants to know, is so curious about each of us, that it's woven us. It looks through our eyes, beats our heart, breathes our breath, thinks our thoughts. We are that. We are that. And since in the world, in this spiritual world, everything is already perfect and complete, our job as human beings is really to evolve our spiritual consciousness such that we are so in harmony with that divine that the creativity is there, the creative principle. Whatever it is that confronts us is just a way of looking at the world. And if I see it as a problem, it's because I see it as a problem. And so my job is to harmonize with that creative principle, to know the nature of God, and that's when it gets revealed, whatever it is that would resolve the issue. But it's not that I'm praying to God to have dominion over the problem. It's to harmonize myself such that it just takes care of itself. The power is there to be harmonized with, but not to be used. Does that make sense? Okay. All right, that makes sense. Here's your homework. So it's a two-parter. First one is spend the week just harmonizing. Really, just for the musicians, I always like to, for you guys, it's just another day at the office. But for the rest of us, just spend a day harmonizing and or spend your week just really getting into the flow of things. You know, if you see a problem, just pray to harmonize with whatever it is, because the answer will be revealed. And so one is work on harmony all week. And number two is read chapter 4 of The Art of Spiritual Healing by Joel Goldsmith. Have a great week. Namaste. It's our prayer time. I would invite the practitioners to please stand with me. There is only one life. La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. It is everywhere equally present. There is no place where God is not. It is at the top of the highest mountain, the lowest point at the bottom of the ocean, and every bird that flies, brighter than the sun that rises today. It is all there is. It is known by so many names: Allah, God, Mother, Father, Creator, Pachamama. It is known by so many things: grace, peace, harmony, joy, love, health. It is known as that. And I am made in its image and likeness. It had a thought, and I was born made of peace, of joy, of love, of goodness, of creativity. I am that. And as I know this for me, I know this for every single person seated in this sanctuary who can hear my voice. Everyone is made in the image and likeness of that one living God. And each person here is that. Love, joy, happiness, peace, abundance, grace, beauty, truth. Each person is that. And I know in this moment, I affirm and declare that every person here is so in tune and in harmony with his and her divine nature that anything unlike that harmony now falls away, never to return. Each person here is grace and walks in that grace, is love and walks in it, peace and joy, abundance, prosperity. Each person here is walking on sacred ground, for each has been recognized. Each is that part of the divine. I affirm and declare for Viola pure health, for she is that. Any appearance of illness falls away. I affirm and declare for each person seeking help that they find it, for it is only an appearance in the divine nature of the one. Each person who seeks love finds it. Grace finds it. Abundance finds it. For there is nothing to worry about, for each of us are cared for like the lilies of the valley, like the birds in the air. Each of us is already cared for. I affirm and declare that that unconditional love that is our being is what each of us feels from this day forward, that each of us bravely steps out in that unconditional love and knows ourselves exactly the way that the divine sees us, perfect, whole, complete. I am so grateful for this knowing. I'm so grateful for this community, so grateful that we stand shoulder to shoulder on this spiritual path, knowing each other, seeing each other in the highest and the best, knowing that our world is evolving, understanding that this evolution allows the resources to be exactly where they need to be, such that every person goes to bed fed, housed, appreciated, that every person is that person they intend to be. I'm so grateful, so grateful. And it is with that grateful heart that I release my word, knowing it cannot come back to me void, knowing that as I've spoken, it is done. And so it is. Thank you, practitioners.